The GISD Head Start program takes behavioral health very seriously. You will receive additional training in this area throughout the year. Over a quarter of children under the age of 4 have witnessed or experienced some form of trauma in their lives. Examples include loss or lack of a consistent caregiver due to illness, death, divorce, or incarceration, abuse or neglect, exposure to domestic violence, or prolonged illness and/or injury due to medical procedures or accidents. Children's brains develop in the context of their early experiences. When children are exposed to trauma, it interrupts children's abilities to process situations and undermines their ability to learn, form healthy relationships, and follow classroom expectations. When children are unable to regulate their internal emotions and physical states, they are at risk for being overwhelmed with situations that may not be stressful or overwhelming to others. As a result of exposure to trauma, children often display aggressive behavior and struggle with impulse control. They may be insecure about their relationships with others and may misunderstand others' facial and body expressions. Keep in mind these children probably do not fully understand or cannot fully articulate why they're acting out. As a teacher or caregiver, you may not observe or fully understand the rationale either. Often, a child's behavior can be very frustrating to adults. You may view specific behaviors, such as a child wetting his pants, even though he's been potty trained for years, as intentional or controlled. You may even feel that the child's behavior is directed specifically toward you. However, in most cases, this simply isn't true. There's always an underlying cause for the behavior. The good news is that children's brains can change in response to new positive experiences. Healthy and consistent interactions with school staff are critical and directly impact a child's ability to engage successfully in school. It is your obligation to provide consistent daily routines, engage in regular positive communication with families, form nurturing, affectionate relationships with all students, and utilize only positive methods of child guidance. The GISD is part of a nationwide Promoting Positive School Climate project focused on providing positive behavioral interventions and supports to all children. You'll learn more about this project later. One of the easiest ways to impact behavior and school climate is to change the way we communicate. Consider this story. Mary stopped at McDonald's every morning on her way to work. Every morning she ordered a small black coffee and an oatmeal with no raisins. Every morning she sat down at her desk, opened the McDonald's bag, and found oatmeal with only raisins. Growing frustrated, Mary decided to try a different approach. Instead of saying what she didn't want, the next morning Mary ordered her oatmeal with extra apples. Lo and behold, when she got to work, she discovered that her oatmeal had no raisins and extra apples, just like she wanted. The moral of the story is this: we see the behavior we're looking for. How does this relate to you? When you're asking a child to stop running in the classroom, tell the child to use walking feet. When it's too noisy in the classroom, tell the children it's time to use their whisper voices. Even children with the most challenging of behaviors have redeeming qualities. Focus on their strengths as opposed to those behaviors that really bother you. You'll be surprised at what you see. Our program uses a prevent, teach, reinforce model for changing behavior. We put supports such as the behavior matrix that you'll learn about later, consistent routines, and positively stated expectations in place to prevent problem behaviors. We also specifically teach appropriate behaviors in the setting where the behavior is expected. When inappropriate behavior occurs, this is a cue that you need to reteach appropriate behaviors. While we do not specifically praise children in Head Start, we do reinforce appropriate behaviors. For example, Johnny, who frequently struggles to sit during large group, has been wandering around the room for the last several minutes, but has come to carpet and is standing near the group. Grab the opportunity in front of you. Tell Johnny that you see he's come to the group and invite him to sit down. Only acknowledge what Johnny's doing right in this situation. Ignore that he has been wandering. Here are 6 effective practices that you should follow. Number 1, identify and define your behavioral expectations. Number 2, teach behavior expectations. Number 3, monitor expected behavior. Number 4, encourage and acknowledge appropriate behavior. Number 5, correct behavior errors through a continuum of consequences. And number 6, use data for decision making. Keep in mind that all behavior is a form of communication. No child should ever be intentionally or unintentionally humiliated or belittled because of his or her behavior. Since behavior is learned, behavior can be changed. While punitive techniques may provide immediate change, lasting behavioral change really only occurs when positive techniques are used. Children and adults engage in behavior because they've learned that the behavior works to get them desired outcomes. Behavior only continues if it works. So, if Johnny is still swearing at you after 5 weeks of trying to change the behavior, you need to figure out exactly what swearing is doing for Johnny. Every GISD Head Start classroom uses this behavior matrix. Our 3 big rules are be respectful, be responsible, and be safe. As a staff, we have identified specific behavioral expectations for each of the big rules in various settings throughout the building, including the bathroom, classroom, gym, hall, playground, and bus. It's your responsibility to teach these behavioral expectations to all students and review them after school breaks, when new students come into the class, or when you notice that children's behavior warrants a refresher. All staff, regardless of whether or not they are in a classroom, should be familiar with language on the matrix and should reinforce appropriate behavior. Seclusion and restraint of children is prohibited in the GISD Head Start program. Children may not be confined to a room or area alone. An adult is required to remain in constant visual and auditory contact with a child at all times. Children may not be restrained for any reason. This is not to say that you may not sit Johnny on your lap to help him feel better. For program purposes, however, restraint is defined as restricting a child's freedom of movement or physical activity. Basically, if Johnny can't move his head, arms, or legs, he's being restrained. In extreme situations where a child becomes so out of control that his or her behavior is a threat to the safety of the rest of the class, we ask that one staff member evacuate the rest of the class to a safe location, such as a buddy classroom, and then call for help, while one staff member stays with the acting out individual. While we recognize that this is often disruptive and inconvenient, it is considered to be best practice across the country. Rarely, some staff members will be trained in safe restraint techniques. Even staff members who participate in this multiple day training are expected to use restraint only as a last resort and only when no other options are available to keep the child safe. Children come to us every day with challenging behaviors. You are expected to handle all children professionally and appropriately. Per Head Start performance standards, we do not send children home because of behavior. Under no circumstances should a teacher, associate teacher, classroom support, or family engagement advocate make the determination to send a child home. If a child's behavior is so out of control that he cannot be kept safe at school, the site coordinator, along with the program director or other CCP administration, may make a temporary determination. As outlined in the performance standards, this suspension must be temporary, and a determination to suspend a child must be made in collaboration with the mental health consultant, the child's parents, and other community resources to determine that no other reasonable option is appropriate. You are a part of a multi-tiered system of support designed to ensure that all children reach their fullest potential. All students receive Tier 1 support, which includes the use of best practices and techniques aimed at preventing problem behavior. Some children will continue to struggle despite the Tier 1 supports put in place for them. These children may be eligible for Tier 2 support from behavioral health staff. Even fewer children will qualify for Tier 3 supports. Tier 3 supports are intensive, usually one-on-one interventions designed to specifically target problem behavior. Keep in mind, Tier 3 is not special education. This flowchart can help you determine next steps when dealing with a child's challenging behavior. Major behaviors should be documented on a behavior incident report, also referred to as a BIR. Ideally, a BIR should be submitted to behavioral health staff within 24 hours so that the information can be documented on the online behavior management system and pattern behaviors can be addressed efficiently. A copy of the current BIR is available to you in the green binder in your classroom.